Hey y'all, it's Sarah. I'm sitting here about to start on a spread, and I thought I would turn the camera on and just see if anybody wanted to join in and hang out while you work on yours, and you can kind of see what my process is like. I don't have anything formal planned for this one. I have a little inspiration. You can see here I've got a scratch piece of paper that I just started doodling on, and I thought I would try to do it on a spread. I kind of like how those turned out. They were inspired by some watercolor wall art that I saw on Pinterest, so I thought I'd give it a try and show you a few ways that I do some things when I'm using markers on my page. This is what I'm going to be using, the Zeyar, I guess that's how you say that. I hope that's how you say that. The Zeyar highlighters. I'm using the chunky ones and these thinner ones. These are all from their Cream Colors collections, and I'm going to be using this one, and I can't even tell you what brand it is. It's not marked, but I'm going to be throwing this one in. You can do this probably in any color scheme you wanted to, but I was just going to tell you that that's what I'm using because I love these colors so much. I'm going to put these to the side so I have access to them, and the first thing I want to show is that I did this already. If you look, it almost looks like it's printed on there. I do this on most of mine because this is where I put like our meal plan along the bottom. And then if I remember, I usually try to do it at the top just to keep up with our weather and craziness, trying to schedule around weather sometimes. So I'm going to show you when I do this one. I'm going to go ahead and do the top. I cheat because I'm not good with control sometimes. So I cheat and put a little tape at the end of this. And this is just Dollar Tree washi tape. And I just kind of mask it off so I can get it even. You don't have to do this if you're in better control of your markers than I am. This is just, I wanted to show you how to get really clean lines if it mattered to you. And I do the same thing with my squares sometimes if I'm trying to get lines all the way across those. So this is all I did. I come in with a ruler or a straight edge of some sort and try to line it up there. I'm going to be using just this, I don't know. I got a couple of these individual in this gray color. It doesn't say on here what this color is, but it's a really nice gray. It goes on really well. I'm going to go ahead and just start on the tape part and end on the tape part. And I try to do it pretty quick. I'm putting quite a bit of pressure on my ruler to help prevent any bleeding from going under the plastic. So let's try this. So there was a little bit of bleeding. Not bad. Not as good as my bottom one, but still not bad. Nothing I'd fret about. This one is not going to be perfect. If you're wanting to pick up some perfection on here, this is probably not going to be a spread for perfection. I'm going to go ahead and tape this side off too. So I finished that. You can see they're all lined up. And it looks almost printed on there itself. I really like using that method. If you can do it in one smooth stroke, it really works out super clean, if you can see that. There we go. Now I have my spot for dinner. You could do this with giving yourself probably a lot of different sections if you really needed them. I am going to jump into the doodle art on here. So let me slide this one out of the way so I can come in a little bit closer because I'm going to start on this page. The reason I do that is I don't typically have as active of a weekend as I do maybe a weekday. So I can draw more in kind of this Friday to Sunday section. So this is where I'm starting, but you can pretty much apply these same doodles anywhere. I'm going to kind of get a little close for you guys so maybe you can see what I'm doing because these colors really are super light and soft. So I'm hoping this is close enough for you to see kind of what I'm doing. I'm coming in with just this really cheap dollar store 10-pack ballpoint pen. You can see. You can use whatever kind of black pen that you like, or if you just want to go in with pencil. I did like the outline on this though, going in with kind of this scratchy outline, especially since I'm not a great drawer. This gives me a lot of room to, I don't know, maybe correct a few errors without it being as noticeable that I can't keep a straight line or I can't get a line to go smooth. So I really kind of like doing this, and these ballpoint pens work really, really well for it. I'm going to start probably right around here, but you start wherever you want to. And I'm just going to scratch down, literally like chicken scratch is pretty much what I'm doing. And I'm basically just doing a rounded off square. I'm going to see where the shapes lead. I didn't really have anything planned for this one other than I had tested or taught myself this cute little doodle and wanted to try it. So that's kind of all I did so far. I'm going to come in with, I don't know if you can tell, this is like a terracotta level pink. It's got a little bit of orangey undertones. It's got a little bit of pink. It's kind of in the salmon range. It's the best way I can describe it. But by the time all these layers dry, it's going to come out and give you this terracotta kind of look. I think this watercolor, in my mind, that's how it's going to work out. We're going to see. So I'm just going to start out right here. And I'm just doing a couple random strokes using the widest part of this. And I didn't mean for that to come out in a cross. I guess that's just kind of how it worked out, but I'm going to work with it. I'm coming in with a slightly lighter version. And throwing some color on there. I'm going to leave that and go ahead and move on to another plant. You can see it's a little damp. I want to give dry time each time so that I have less likelihood for any kind of bleed on the back. So here we go. I don't know what shape this is going to be. I'm going to try for something round, but I can't draw a circle, so we'll see. Well, we're going to get something oval. This is how this is going to go. Now, I didn't get this side very even. This is the cool thing about using this scratchy look, is I'm going to try to scratch it out a little nicer. I don't even have to get it even right there, honestly. So I think that's a pretty good planter as far as I'm concerned. It works for me. Oh, let's try something a little more rounded out. I'm not sure how well that'll go. I'm going to go a little wider with this one, just because. Okay, not great, but you can see I'm trying to clean it up down along those edges. And then when I go and add the other details, that'll help it a lot too. So don't panic if you're not doing well at this, because this is kind of one of those doodles that lean towards less perfect, making it a little on the cuter side, I think, because it's less perfect. I'm going to come across here, maybe. Let's see how well I can do this. I always try on that first stroke to see how I can do, and then I scratch back across. And what else can we throw in here? Maybe a little slighter, rounder one. Let's see how this goes. I'm just working right over the lines of my grid. I usually do that for the most part. If I can work it into the image, I'll try. But after a while, you stop noticing that the lines go through. So maybe I can clean this side up. Looks like kind of like a fishbowl. I think that's good enough. I'm not going to stress too much about it. I'm going to do the same thing across here. I'm just going to keep going in and making shapes like this. And then the fun part is coming in and adding the color so that it looks like watercolor, and using the marker to add your plants in, because leaves are not always easy to me, but if I do the markers first with them, I have a much easier time getting kind of that leaf form going. So here we go. Let's put a pot here. I'm just repeating the same shapes the best I can, but this one doesn't have to have consistency in their shapes since I'm doing a variety anyway. So this one probably is a good one to try your hand at. It doesn't have to be as accurate. Each image doesn't have to be as accurate as the one before it. So it's probably a good one to give yourself a little confidence with, I think. And you can see as I go down, I'm certainly not getting any of these lines symmetrical on the first try. And I'm just going to keep working across here and adding more pottery, more little plants. So this is what I've got accomplished so far. I've got a few planters here and there. I'm going to come in now and start playing with the color, throwing a few layers on, and then going in and putting some details. I bounce around. It's just in my nature. And it really does help let me get more color added to these. So there's no rhyme or reason to how I'm filling these in. It's almost like a marker game of Tetris, for those of you from that generation. I think it's kind of like that. I am staying less in the middle so that it's almost like that is a lighter source. And most of them I do come down pretty decent on one side with a little bit of color. And I'm just kind of blocking in some color here and there. I have no pattern to how I've been testing this. Mostly just making sure the strokes all stay the same direction. I'm not coloring across any opposite way with these strokes. So I've put this first layer on, and just to be on the safe side, I'm going to give it a few seconds to dry after I get all my little extra color squares in place. I'm going to give it a little extra time to dry, and I think I can move on to the next color pretty quickly. These are super juicy, and I've been using the daylights out of these, and they're still really nice application of ink, and I've been coloring like crazy with these things. I've played with a lot of fall stuff with these colors. I really like this mauvey, orangey, I don't know how to describe it to, I guess we all see colors slightly different. I don't know how to describe it to someone, but I do like it for fall. It's really soft once it dries. It goes on pretty bold. You can see it goes on pretty dark. And then when it dries, it really softens up. So I'm going to come in now. I think most of these dried a little faster than what I expected. I'm going to go ahead and come in and add a few, kind of doing a similar thing, just at random. I'm adding some of this lighter shade. And I don't really have a method here either. And I move around to make sure that I keep it more on the random side, because I would likely probably lean to go towards a little more symmetry. So if I bounce around like that, I'm a little less likely to be symmetrical. So that's going to get a chance to dry. And this one, I do need it to dry because the next layer needs to layer over it in a dry state so that the color doesn't blend through the wrong way. So I don't want to do it while it's wet. That way I can actually see the color and it doesn't just wet everything down and blur together. So I'm going to give this real time to dry. I'll be back in a few seconds. While these finish drying, I'm going to go in and start playing with some leaf ideas. So I've got some of my greens here. They're pretty similar in their colors. There may be a hair difference. So I'm using both because I'm going to use their tips to kind of help guide me to get maybe a little better leaf than what I would have gotten without, for sure. I'm using the chunky one, and I'm just going to come into one of these planters. I don't even think it really matters. And I'm going to kind of drag it up. I don't really know exactly what I'm aiming for here, but this is what I'm going to do. I feel like maybe that's going to give me an aloe kind of look. And I'm going to come in with the lighter color and just start putting some leaves in some places. I'm using the smaller tip just because it's a little more nimble. Like as I move around, I can get a little bit smaller leaf than I can with kind of this bigger, fatter one. And I'm kind of going at an angle. I don't know if you can see that. That color is so light. Let's hold on and we're going to get a little closer. Maybe that'll help. It is a really faint green. I love this. I use it for shadowing a lot because it leans in a green kind of gray range. So it works really well for shadowing too. I'm just dragging it down using that tip at a slight angle and just kind of flicking it in different directions. That works for me. I think that's got a little bit of fullness. I'm going to come back with that similar color, but I'm using this chunkier one. I feel like the lighter green was easier for me to start with, and then if I needed to fill in, I could. I'm going to do the same thing with this one and just drag it out with a little wider leaf. It's not much wider, just a hair. And also with that thicker tip, I'm even dragging it down into my color, if you notice. I pulled all the way down into the pot. I don't think it was a big deal when I went in and outlined everything and added all the details. It looked pretty much like watercolor would to me as you layered watercolor. I'm bringing in the chunky in the darker green and doing kind of the same thing. I'm just going to go, if they overlap, that's fine. And I'm just turning my wrist different directions so the leaves kind of just go all over the place, really. Let's throw, I think I'll leave that. So while I have this chunky one, I'm just going to move up and do the same thing. Where do I want to throw this? I think I want to go ahead and do this. Maybe drag it down and put another one of these guys up here. I have so many ideas and I don't want to forget any of them. I think that's enough fronds, I guess. I'm not sure what they're called on an aloe vera. Somebody tell me that, because I'm not really a plant person. I like how they look, but I do not have a green thumb when it comes to plants, so I don't keep a lot of real ones. Okay, so that's where I'm at so far. I think, let's try, I'm going to come up to this one here. I think I want to try something that hangs down. It's kind of what I'm leaning for, especially right here, because I think maybe I can make this look like it's hanging down. And I want the plant to hang down too, so I'm going to start throwing some leaves a little further down, I think. And I'm still keeping with that angular. And even if you get it super angular and a little pointier than you would a leaf, when we go to trace these out, it'll help a lot soften those angles. Because some of these really look like a diamond pattern, if you notice. And I'm not really sure how far up I want the leaves to come. I'm just eyeballing it as I go. This is kind of how I end up working most of the time anyway. That's why I don't really like doing planned videos, because my creativity is certainly not planned. It just comes when it comes. So it's very hard for me to do. I mean, I take notes and I have my idea books, but I can change my mind mid-creative moment. I'm just bringing in the lighter green now and doing the very same thing and just kind of moving all around. If you can see that. They're so soft and pretty. I will go maybe, I might add some darker in here when I go to hide my, I guess, my strings that'll make this a hanging plant. Speaking of which, I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm bringing in this tan color, and we're going to use this again when I come back and finish up on the pottery. See, I'm all over the place. I think I better get a straight edge just to be on the safe side. Let me find a middle point here. I feel like the middle point of my pot would be maybe right around there. That just helps me. I am not super great at consistency. I'm really not. But the things that I tend to doodle and what I'm mostly sharing, I think, are really good for people that want to have the drawn look but aren't great with consistency. So that's all I did. I probably could go in and put another line there, but I don't feel like that's necessary. I think I'm just going to keep the two little strings hanging there. And I'm going to try to come in, and you're about to see how bad I am with a straight line. I'm going to try to come in and maybe I'll leave that for now. I was going to line it, but I don't know. I kind of like how soft that looks. The string hanging down. We'll see. On my little test run, you can see it's still cute even though it's lined. But I also like it without the outline, so we'll see. While I have my pen here, since I've already made this decision, I'm just going to come in and kind of outline these, but a little softer. Maybe not follow the points exactly, but close enough. I don't mind if the ink is outside of my lines on this. This doodle really works for that kind of offset look. I might draw a little line up here to look like it's hanging down. Maybe one there. We'll start outlining these. And really, you can see I'm not doing that great of a job with the shape of the leaves. And I feel like it really does work for this. There's probably way more accurate ways to get a look like this where you could get it a little more symmetrical and those kind of things. But this one, I ended up liking how it looked. And I felt like this could probably be accomplished by any skill level. And not even really taking that long. I mean, I'm taking my time and having a discussion with you guys about it, but really, I think this would be a good starter one. And I don't even know if I'm going to outline all of the leaves. There's a few light ones in the background that I just left. Maybe a little line somewhere in there to look like there's a leaf going on. And now you see what I mean about we'll clean the leaves up some. Now, these have had a little bit of time to dry. The pottery. See, I told you I'd be all over the place. But since I'm so close on finishing this one, I'm going to bring in this tan. And I'm just going to add a few strokes over this. And it's going to tone that down a little bit. But I'm not going to cover the whole thing. I'm basically doing the same thing that I did, doing those little square or rectangle type strokes. But I'm going over some of the colors that I did already. And it's going to age them and tone them down a little bit. We're basically distressing our kind of terracotta look here. I am still going to leave some white here and there in mine, I think. As you get going, you can kind of decide. And it looks pretty dark. It's going to dry much lighter. And I'm sure you've kind of noticed that these have already dried really much lighter than what they were when I first applied them. I'm just following a similar path to some of the colors I laid down. Maybe a little slightly different where the tan color actually shows up. If I have pots that are connecting, like these are kind of connecting, I certainly want to drag this slightly darker color to the side of those just to look like a little shadow. But we're going to add some shadow with a kind of a purple color is what I'm using, that I'm going to be adding as a shadow. It's this color here. And it's almost like a lavender gray. But this does kind of help that shadow process a little bit. And you can see I just randomly went all over the place the same way, just doing this kind of grid-like stroke pattern. There we go. Hopefully I'm not making you too dizzy. The further I get back, the less detail you can see, and I don't want anybody to miss anything they might needed to see. Now, I'm going to try a few other strokes that I didn't test out when I did mine, but we're going to try them out on here just to see how they look. I feel like this one may need something tall since I gave it that kind of tall shape. So I'm just going to come in and do a few flicks like this. You don't have to do this one. I just figured I already made a tall vase or planter. I might want to throw something tall in there. And you can just vary these up. I did several variations of some things. I layered some things. Let's see, where's a good spot? Let's try this one. I did the same thing that I did here, but I ended up doubling up. So let's see if I can get that going. Sometimes I have a hard time getting a stroke in at a weird angle, but there we go. Maybe you can see that. And I'm going to give it a second to dry. They are still a little wet, you can see. When that does that, though, I do kind of like it because it adds like another layer of color. You can see where that ink is still really saturated and it pulls up in these places, and it just adds more color to them. I don't mind that. You just have to be careful. You don't want to let it sit too much or you could end up with it bleeding through on the back. But these colors are so soft. I would almost feel like that was impossible. You'd have to leave it sitting there a long time, I think. I love these colors. I really do. They get me so excited. They're in a more natural range. If you like bright colors, I do. On some things, I like bright colors. And then other things, I kind of like the softer look. So I'm just bringing in this slightly different color green because I can't remember exactly what color this was. I knew it was a hair different. And I'm just repeating all these same strokes over again. And what'll change them is the different ways that I outline them. And that really is what gives you kind of the idea that you've got multiple plants going on. Let's see if I can squeeze some leaves in between these guys. Don't be afraid to go down into this area if you want to bring some leaves down. Don't be too stressed about doing that. I found that I could outline it pretty nicely and get kind of a little more volume, I guess, in my plants. And let's see. Maybe right here I want something that spills over and kind of fills in this little bit of gap. So I'm just going to bring some leaves down this way. And let's see what happens if I double that stroke side by side. Can you see that? That same angled stroke. And I just doubled them side by side. The marker is going to do all of my work for me. I'm going to move it all around so I can get these leaves to go lots of different directions. I don't know what plants these would be. So I'm not going to pretend to name them or tell you what kind of leaf we're mimicking. But whatever's in this kind of shape, that's what we're pretending to draw. And I think I may do this with a mix of colors. You could probably, let's just try this. I've got the light one and the dark one. Let's see how this looks. We're learning this together. This is how I learn, honestly. So let's try one with, let me get it at a good angle. Let's try one with a light stroke and the dark stroke connected. Let's see what it looks like. Oh, well, that looks like it could be something. That looks like it could make it even more detailed. Let's try that a few times. Now I'm going to get lost on a new method to doing these leaves. I'll try not to go down the rabbit hole here with playing. So I'm going to continue to do this and fill this in. I won't make you watch that, but you kind of got the idea of what I was doing. Working those strokes, just basically side by side, doing the very same stroke. I'm going to go ahead and finish this little plant right here. And then the outlining is where we're going to have a little fun. And whoops, that just went sliding everywhere on me. The outlining is where we have a little fun and really change these plants up. Since I finished all my little leaf strokes, now I'm going to come in again with my little ballpoint pen and start really putting some detail in. This is where I had a lot of fun and kind of tinkered with the different looks to get the different leaves. I'm going to start right here with this aloe vera looking plant, and I'm just going to kind of swoop down like that around those arms of it. And I don't even care, to be honest, if there's white right there. It works. So I'm using this opportunity to kind of clean up some of that. And you can see it's still kind of a mess. It's out of alignment. I think that's fine. If you want to get it in a little more alignment when you draw around, I'm not always steady, depending on the time of day. So I'm comfortable with this, but I'm just going to come in now at these very tips, and I just added kind of a sharp little point to them, just for another little detail. Maybe you can see that. Nothing major. And that was it. The next thing I did was I came in and just kind of scratched around the edges. If you can see that. I came in, I drug it down a little, just like that. Do the same thing on this round one. And then maybe throw something like that in. I'm not sure if those are in the right spots for reflective surfaces or whatever, but I felt like they made a cute detail. Like I was really trying something without really trying something. So I did that pretty much to all of my little planters or containers. I did some kind of squiggly down the side, around towards the bottom. There was honestly no rhyme or reason. I just kind of kept it within that parameter there, I guess. And you can see it just added a nice little touch without really having to be super perfect with it. And I'll end up doing that with all the pottery. So I just wanted to go ahead and do that as I got into the leaves. That way, if I needed to get some of these leaves to blend a little better where I crossed them over my planter, I didn't necessarily have these extra lines in the way. So here we go. Speaking of which, I'm going to move over to this next little guy and just kind of look at his leaf outline. And you can see I crossed over right there. I don't think it's a big deal when you look at the overall end result. So I just kind of brought those to a little point. Flick a little stem there, flick a little stem there. That's good enough for me. I want to jump, let's see, I want to jump to these fatter ones really quickly so that I don't miss the opportunity to get those done. When I came in to do some of these, like right around here, I swung out like I'm drawing a heart and brought it up to that highest point of that little diamond. Let's try that again and maybe you can see what I did. It helped me stay pretty consistent. Like I keep saying, consistency is not my strongest point when it comes to trying to doodle. So I basically drug a heart out along that marker angle and kind of used it to show me where I wanted to bring it out to. Some of them may be a little harder. And you don't necessarily have to do all of them. We're just given the idea or the visual illusion. Some of them certainly are better than others, but overall, I think they're pretty cute. And hearts, I feel like, even if you can't make a good heart, this is actually perfect if you cannot make a good heart. If you make a lopsided heart every time you try, this is probably super perfect. I'll try to get this little lopsided one there. So I just did a few of those. I'm going to do the same thing with kind of flicking some lines down. to look like the stems or vines or something like that. That's kind of all I did. I might add a little more color on this one. As a matter of fact, let me do that before I forget. I'm just going to come in and add a little. It was easier to use the slightly darker version of the color across where I might have across the leaves over. So I could go in and touch those again. Oh, I actually kind of like that darker green right there. So that's what I just did. I just went in at the base of those lighter ones and added a little bit of darker. That helped quite a bit where I overlapped down here. And I will do the same thing with these. Just do varying shapes. If you notice on this one, I went a little more angular, rather than doing the teardrop shape that I kind of did here. I'm doing almost like a fish body. When you're a little kid and you go to draw a fish, almost like that. I'm certainly not within the lines of my ink, but when you're looking at a plant, you see the leaves through the leaves, and you still kind of see that faded green behind them, so I think that works. And I'm just continuing with my little fish bodies here. There we go. That one's pretty cute. And I think we'll just go a little more traditional with this one. You can see I really don't have consistency. And that's what I've been working towards, is finding pieces that I can still do even without that consistency. So maybe it'll help you guys find something that you can do even if you're like me. I'm not sure if I'll ever be somebody that could draw the very same thing the exact same way over and over. I don't know if I'll ever get to that point. I'll have to see. So I drew a few little straighter stems on that one. And you can see just adding a couple of little black lines with just a click ballpoint pen turned all of these plants kind of individual. So let's come up to this one. Oops, let's get you in line. I'm going back to this one that has the really light fronds here. And I think I'm going to add a darker color at the bottom of each one of those. I know they're really, really faint there, but maybe you'll see. Just kind of swoop down. Ooh, I did terrible with that line. That one too. Maybe I can clean it up in the outline process. Or I'll just give it a little time to dry. We'll see. So I'm going to let that one dry and move over to this one. And I think maybe I can get a good swoop here. I'm going to do a really soft swoop up, right up into that leaf, I think. And one little flick down. And I might even come in just under the bottom of those leaves. Just like this. I got all quiet on you guys, I'm sorry. Just like that, and not even necessarily do the top of that leaf, just the bottom. Can you see that? And moving on to this one, I'm going to go back into doing kind of the similar scratchy lines that we did here, the little nervous lines, I like to call them. So I'm going to try to start at a point just above. That way I knew I got a fairly even point each time. So I'm just going to scratch it down. Just like that. And I'll pretty much do that to all of them. I might have to turn this one a little. And I just brought that point a little further out into the white area. I guess maybe to give it like it had that faded white tip that you kind of see at the end of some of these cactus type plants. I went a little crazy with that jagged edge there, but I think it'll be okay. And last one, I'm going to bring that tip out and even that out because I went a little short on that, I felt like. There we go. So a slightly different little cactus from this one down here. Now back to this one over here. It's had time to dry. I think I can work with it now. I think I'll do something pretty similar. Start out a little further and slowly drag it in. Maybe not quite as hard, scratchy lines as this one. I'm kind of wiggling it more as I'm going up this one than I was scratching. Maybe I can clean this frond up. It came a little weird here at this end, so we're going to try. Let's see. I think that kind of evened that one out. This one is going to fall a little short, so I might be able to even it out some too. There we go. I feel like that works. So while I'm down here on this side, I'll go ahead and do, I'm already in that little motion, so I'm going to go ahead and do this little scratch in here. And you can see I'm just changing it up just a little on each one, so they all kind of have their own independent reflection. I feel like this side is a little off here. Is it? Am I looking at it strange? Maybe. I feel like it needs to come down a little more. There we go. That works for me. That's why I like using this method. There's no need to fret. This was a really easy way for me to get something that looked like I put some kind of art into it that I really didn't put any kind of art into it. And I think with these, I'm going to do the heart thing again. And these already have that natural shape. But the ones with the two-tone now have highlights and lowlights in their leaves, so that's cool. This is how I figure things out. I'm being really quiet. I know it seems like I'm being down. I'm not. I'm being really quiet because it's the middle of the night and I was inspired and I kind of had to come do this. And I don't want to wake anybody. So we're kind of having a slumber party together. And I think I'll do that same thing. I'm just going to follow really the pattern that I got with my marker again. I like some of these going a little wider. So I might try to fan that out a little. That way they're just a hair bigger than the ones that are on this plant down here. You could do them all different sizes on here since plants grow at different rates. I'm going to try to get these a little larger. I'm not as good upside down with them. I feel like I don't draw a lot of hearts upside down. I usually pretty much keep a standard motion trying to get a heart shape, but there you go. Let's see if I can get this one. It's kind of going a weird direction, but I think I can accommodate for that. I think I'll just use a little vine because I feel like it's coming up weird over here. I think I'm just going to use a little vine and bring it down like that. And the way these are done, you don't even necessarily have to put the vine part in. It's almost not even necessary. Like, even though these are floating out here, you still know these go to this plant. So it's really not even necessary. You don't even have to connect them all. That way it doesn't get super busy inside of your plant. And if you notice, I didn't with some of these. I left them disconnected. It still has the illusion that it's part of that same plant. There we go. Let's see. Did I miss? Oh, my little details on this guy. My little hanging plant. I think I did decide that I'm not going to outline, just so you can see again. This is what it looked like if I outline my strings, my rope. I don't think I'm going to outline it on this. That way, if I do decide I want to write something across here, I can write directly over that and it won't be a problem. That's why I like using markers. They're easy to write over. Even if I've drawn all over this, I honestly could still write across this with no problem. So here's some plants for one side. That's pretty much all I'm going to do with the planters and the leaves. And I'm going to bring in, like I mentioned earlier, this lavender. It's a lavender gray. And you'll see as I put it down, kind of how it looks. And I'm just going to outline. This is going to be my shadow. I'm just going to outline using the angle of this. I don't know how much shadow would really be on a hanging plant up here. And I'm even going around some of my leaves. Just up the one side. And you can see really how faint that is. It's seriously just a hint of color. I love it. It's nothing overbearing, nothing that takes away. You could come in and do it around your rope here. Just a hint. Just a hair of a shadow. Same thing down here. I'm going to do it a little different. I came up around that plant, but down here I'm going to start a little further over and crookedly drag this across, and I'm spinning it a little. I might need to come a little further down right there. Can you guys see how I'm just kind of twisting this along? And I could pull this out a little further past this plant and a little further past that plant. Can you see how mild that is? And I might even bring a little more over here. And I could bring some down around the sides of these. You decide. I thought I would put, just to be a little extra, but pretty much down one side worked for me to get a nice little touch of shading and shadowing. I'll do the same thing down here. That one made it pretty easy. I don't know how well this is going to show right across here. So I think instead of dragging everywhere across my little gray stripe, I might just bring the shadow up a hair and drag it out this way, just a hair above that. It depends on where you have yours lined up, but don't fret if you don't get it lined up somewhere where you could do it easily. Just move it up a little bit. This is such a faint color on here that I really could just throw it in anywhere I wanted to. And I'll put a little in between each of those. Maybe something right there. You can kind of see it's just so slight and faint. I like how this page is so far. Usually I get all of my kind of quote-unquote artwork part done before I go in and do the things that look like the stickers and my squares. That way I know that I have space for all the things that I might want to tinker with. I'm going to pull back a little bit so you can see. And I'm going to throw, well, before I do that, it probably is easier for you to see. Using this same little kind of wiggle technique, right around here, I think I'm going to drag it right around here. And just do a hint of a line. I could do the same thing over here. If you've got a corner that came off a little less straight, this is a good way to take some pressure off of that corner. So I just drug a little bit of a crazy line across there. You could even go across here and do the same thing. I'm not going to do it on this one since it's supposed to be hanging, but I just added it as another little touch. And I barely just put any pressure and kind of pulled that across. It doesn't move super smooth for me trying to pull this ballpoint pen across, and that ends up giving me the kind of result that I want, if you can see that. Maybe a little darker on that one. Okay, so I'm going to pull it back so you can see where we're at on this page, and then I'm going to jump to the other page. Obviously, I've jumped ahead just for the sake of time, but here is where I stand. I threw a few things in, kind of repeating the same thing that I've been doing the entire time, changing up the leaves here and there. I threw a few squares on here to give me some places that I knew I needed some notes that I'm going to need later. And then using the very same technique here at the bottom that I used on the pots, I did just a little bit of kind of a brick look. I will probably come in and do this very same thing, maybe scattered throughout this page. I'm not really sure. I was thinking about throwing it somewhere up in here, right about here, to kind of point out this transition between the end of this month and the beginning of the next one. So I thought I might put a little bit of brick there just to kind of signify that in my mind. And this is kind of everything. Maybe you guys can see. I use the very same techniques really pretty much over and over at different sizes, which gave me kind of the illusion of a lot of different plants and a lot of different pottery. You can see how now that everything's had some time to really dry, it has that, I feel like it has the terracotta watercolor look. Maybe not quite, but close enough, especially for a spread in my planner. Hopefully you got an idea or two out of this, and it was a good way to play with marker strokes and see. Let me show really quick. Here is the back of my page. Even with all of this on here, you can see. I hope you like my final result. I think it's pretty cute. I've got to get my family stuff put in here so we don't forget anything. I plan to do a few more of these soon. I hope you enjoy just hanging out and doing this with me. Maybe it gave you an idea of how you can get cute spreads without having perfect drawing skills. And I will talk to you guys soon. Bye, y'all.